The 6 VQs. You know, there's something sexy about the 6s. I gotta tell you, something sexy about the 6s. I haven't met a 6 VQ I didn't like. 6 VQs are so delicate and sweet and loving. And that 6, there's something about the 6. You know, I really think that as you go up in the numbers, you bring more awareness with you. It's not that 1 is any less aware than 6. But I really think that the 6s really are willing to add or subtract any of those extra 5 points to balance an equation. Now that's the mature point though for a 6 VQ. A 6 needs to be balanced onto themselves first. That you have to have all of your own personalities in order, and a 6 VQ really has to make sure that you feel good going into the situation. At the end of the day, any of the even numbers turn out to be emotional numbers, and 6 turns out to be emotional. Even though a 6 VQ really is an intellectual kind of a lover, you're very back and forth intellectually. You use a lot of intellect in order to figure out if things are okay. But at the end of the day, at the end of the karmic day, you've got to call whether or not something is out of balance or good for you by how you feel. So if your own emotions aren't intact, this is really the maturity mark of a 6 VQ. If they're not balanced themselves, then they're going to be a mess in the relationship. Once you are balanced yourself, then you tend to help others balance. But it's from having that perfect inner peace yourself that you can do that for others. So the 6 VQ tends to chase after, I think, a little bit of the wild horse. 6 VQs tend to want to balance and smooth things out. They tend to be very delicate and artistic and sweet and loving. And so they tend to go for more of the real, typical, aggressive MQ, male quotient. So they go after that real sexy kind of cowboy. I see the 6 VQs go after the 9s all the time. I see 6 VQs go after the 0 VQs. So at the end of the day, the 6 VQs love to love and love the process of giving and receiving. And so if it feels right, the 6 VQ is mostly going to do it. The 6 VQ's focus is on really peace and love. That's why they're so delicate and sweet. Anytime you meet a 6 VQ, whether it's a man or a woman, they're very peaceful and loving creatures. In some ways, they kind of have a deer-like essence, you know, as far as the quiet peace of like the waterfall and that sort of Mother Earth. I would say 6 VQs often are very beautiful and very balanced in some ways. Now, it takes a while to get to that personal balance. So you have to really be fair to yourself. I think 6 VQs can be extremely hard on themselves, and they can end up throwing themselves off of balance just from self-judgment. So managing your own emotions is important, but the focus of 6 VQ is really love and artistry and creativity. The emotional personality of a 6 VQ is very delicate and I would say fragile. They tend to be empaths. They tend to pick up on the most delicate, sensitive frequencies of vibration in the wind. And so the personality is usually fragile, delicate, and in the men, gentlemanly, I would say. 6 VQs tend to be gentle men. The defensiveness of the 6 VQs is a bit erratic. They will usually trust too much going in, really willing to gamble all of those 6 points going in. And as a result, they often get burned. They often give too much, and as a result, don't receive what they're looking for. Your immature 6 VQs are the ones who aren't balanced first going in, and so they are, you know, throwing themselves further out of balance by trying to balance someone else, and then they get overly defensive. So the 6 VQs tend to have either 0 defenses or ridiculous defenses, just 0 or ridiculous. And the trigger point is always a value trigger point. So it's like as soon as you're disrespected, then, well, boom, that's what triggers ultimately your defensiveness. So I think that 6 VQs need to think about their protection going in. I think 6 VQs need to make sure they're balanced and protected before they go in. So you need some 0 there. The likeliness to commit to a 6 VQ is ridiculous. Like they're more like they commit to everything. But what's so funny about a 6 VQ is even though they're extremely committed and right away are signing the contract, they're the first one maybe to to cheat or get out when it's not right. So I think because you tend to be very, what's the word? Proud of your ability to balance and harmonize and connect to others, because you're so, because you're kind of arrogant at relationships, you often feel like you have the right just to leave if you want to. And so it's funny, it's that defensiveness again with the 6 VQs. It's like when you're in their circle, it's amazing. When you're out of their circle, it's cold. And they tend to be very black or white again with who they engage with. So the likeliness to commit is very high. The likeliness to cheat is very high, which is very funny. In bed, oh my goodness. Well, basically I have to say the 6 VQs are amazing lovers in my opinion, but I'm a 10 VQ, so of course I would say that if you watch the 10 VQs, what 10 VQs are interested. But the 6 VQs ultimately bring a lot of determination and artistry and a lot of tactile, because 6 VQs are a bit intellectual. Sexually, they get to be a bit more wet, a little bit more tactile. So, you know, we tend to be in bed, but we're not in person. So the 6 VQs tend to be a bit more wet, sloppy, bring food to the bed. 6 VQs are very romantic about sex. They want to be in a romantic situation, a romantic setting. They want to be, they just really want the whole experience to be a rich experience. So 6 VQs are true lovers in the sense of lovers, and I would recommend anyone to try 6 VQ at least once in their life. Now, if you have 6 in the master number, that means you're meant to master the 6 in the VQ algorithm. Balance is a huge issue for you. That's why you have to master balance. By master, I mean in the moment. That means, are you balanced in the moment? Are you fed in the moment? Are you slept in the moment? Are you well loved in the moment? You have to make sure you are topped off with anything before you add your 6 sexiness to an equation. Because remember, you're actually a lot to handle, even though you come across as very delicate. And so no matter what your VQ number is before the 6, you really got to make sure you are balanced. So when there's a 6 there, and only a 6 in the VQ algorithm, whatever the number is before, you tend to be a person that gets off a balance. You tend to be an off-balance spirit. That's why the 6 is there in your love algorithm. You got to self-balance before you can do some love business on earth. Now, if you have a 6 in the proficient column, there's only 2 ways that can happen. Of course, a 16, and of course a 26. All right. In this case, the 6 brings a different dynamic to each equation. In the 16th equation, you have a person who has to love themselves first, and the 6 is actually a balancing agent of that love. Sometimes people don't love themselves enough. Sometimes people love themselves too much and they're too arrogant. And so the 6 and the 16 is saying, balance your self-love first, bring yourself to peace, and then when you do, it will end up in a godlike connection, a 7. Okay? Now the 16 in the 26 sense, a little different of situation. In this case, you already have a lot of passion, the 2. And so in the 26 quotient, you're a passionate person to begin with. All right? So in this case, adding the 6 means you're actually trying to figure out just how much passion should we bring to the table. And you're balancing out that passion. The 2 and the 6 make an 8, which means you decide what exactly is the amount for you, and you jump in with that decision. So you want to be decisive going in, and you want to use the 6 to balance yourself out. No matter what, the 6 VQ, the 6 of the master number, or the 6 of the proficient number, all these 6s, they do not equal up to the double, actually. The double, if you want to know, is 555. 666 means that there's a lot of loving and giving and receiving going on. And one of the secrets to a 6 is they can make anything work. A 6 can walk into any number and basically top it off and make it into what it needs to be. So the secret to a 6 is you better go in knowing what your heart wants, or you're going to find yourself losing yourself completely in your lovers, because your ability to complete and bring them to balance is so amazing. You got to make sure you are in balance first. So when we work with the 6s in the 6 VQs in GAVenus.com, where I watch over people with text messages every day and with an email program and videos, I work on bringing yourself to balance. I also work on helping you find your artistry. I think that a lot of sixes and the 6VQs need to have some sort of artistic expression themselves. So I'm always interested in your artwork. I'm always interested in your fingernails. I'm always interested in your shoes. Fashion is also really big with the 6VQs. And 6VQs and I always talk a lot on the personal text messaging because they're willing to share so much. I love that. So if you do sign up for gavenus.com and come down for that, we'll be working on your artistry and your self-balance. Thanks for clicking.
So